fellow Southern Cameroonians, my dear people, fellow soldiers of our revolution, accept revolutionary greetings from me this 24th day of March, in the year of our Lord 2019. I believe that by now all of us must have observed that as the days are going by, our enemy, La République du Cameroon, more and more is showing their real face to the world. I believe, and I'm convinced so too, that about every other actor on the international scene must have seen by now the bad faith of La République du Cameroon. They must have seen by now that that country is not ready, not ready for any negotiated settlement to the ongoing conflict in the Southern Cameroons. I think it should be clear in the minds of all by now that the government of La République du Cameroon is determined to live up to the Honorable Wiba challenge in Parliament. And I guess all of us remember that when he spoke elaborately on the sufferings of the people of the Southern Cameroons in Parliament, Honorable Joseph Wiba made clear that we as a people will never accept to be treated as subhumans in a union we freely joined. We were never defeated at war, he reiterated, and he sounded this over and over. I think Mr. Paul Biya and all his cohorts today are determined to defeat and subjugate Southern Cameroons at war. Reason, despite all calls from all angles in the world, even from internal bodies like the National Commission on Human Rights and Freedoms, for the government to embrace dialogue, for the government to embrace negotiations. At some point, that government has refused to pay any heed. And today, an open letter addressed to Mr. Paul Biya by the National Commission on Human Rights and Freedoms of La République du Cameroon is extremely revealing. And the president of the National Commission on Human Rights and Freedoms, Dr. Chemuta Divine Banda, who signs this letter, justifies in it the reason for making it public, the reason for choosing the option of an open letter. And we will be understanding those reasons as we continue in this communication. This is simply clear indication to all those who still believe for I don't know whatever reason that it will ever be good for any Southern Cameroonians in any form of union, be it a confederacy, be it a decentralized unitary state, be it even federalism. It will never ever, never ever be good for the people of Southern Cameroons, because in the minds and eyes of the people of La République du Cameroon, the people of Southern Cameroons are not human beings. The people of Southern Cameroons do not deserve any rights. The people of Southern Cameroons do not even deserve the most inalienable of all rights, that is the right to life. That is why we are treated the way we are treated. Let's get into the crux of this matter. On the 20th of March 2019, some 20 students of the University of Buea, of the football team of the University of Buea, were kidnapped while they were on a practice session by unidentified gunmen. And they were simply, as it is revealed, walked. They were not carried in vehicles. They were not carried on motorbikes. They were simply walked to an unknown location. Imagine 20 students who were doing practice as a football team, captured and walked from the University of Buea to an unknown location. And on the 21st of March, the said kidnappers reportedly got in touch with the Southwest Regional Secretary of the National Commission on Human Rights and Freedoms, and who immediately got into serious negotiations with the kidnappers to ensure the release of the 20 students. The National Commission on Human Rights and Freedoms reports that on the 21st of March, late on the evening of the 21st of March, they succeeded in securing the release of the 20 students. None of them was killed, but they were tortured. And now the National Commission on Human Rights and Freedoms that negotiated and secured the release of the 20 students makes no mention of any ransom paid. But authorities of the University of Buea initially indicated that the kidnappers were asking for some 4 million CFA francs in ransom. Now, when the Commission on Human Rights and Freedoms secures the release of the students, makes no mention of ransom, the authorities of the University of Buea, who were talking about 4 million CFA francs demanded in ransom, would they tomorrow turn around and tell us that they paid ransom? This is actually the crux of the open letter addressed to Mr. Paul Biya by the National Commission on Human Rights and Freedoms. This commission, one, it questions the activities and efficiency of the armed and security forces of La République du Cameroun deployed to Southern Cameroons purportedly to protect the people and their property from so-called terrorists. The National Commission on Human Rights and Freedoms contends that from all indications, some quarters are taking full advantage of the conflict to make personal gains. This is what interests me in that letter the most, because the authorities of the University of Buea, who were already advancing a figure of 4 million CFA francs being requested by the kidnappers to free the students, need to tell us who exactly was asking for that money. Previously, we have mentioned that a lot of the so-called security and armed forces of La République du Cameroun were disguising as Amber Boys, conducting kidnappings and collecting ransoms for their personal upkeep and to augment their purses, just to have it blamed on the freedom fighters of the Southern Cameroons, and just to be able to give a bad name to our legitimate struggle for freedom. Among the numerous aspects that the National Commission on Human Rights and Freedoms should be referring to when they say some people are taking advantage should be kidnappings for ransom, breaking into homes, looting, raping, and burning both homes and humans alive to conceal evidence of their atrocities, arresting innocent people, intimidating them, and collecting huge bribes before releasing them. Because they tell you, if you don't give 500,000, 1 million to be released here, you will be exported to La République du Cameroun dungeons, and you will be labeled either a terrorist or an enabler of terrorism, and then you know what is going to happen to you. Outright breaking into local financial institutions and stealing money and other valuables. Of course, we know of the story how the divisional officer, Indu, was caught on camera in the company of so-called security forces breaking into a local cooperative credit union, and they carted away the safe, carried away all the money that was therein. We haven't forgotten about the incident where so-called security forces broke into some quarters of doctors and nurses in Chisom, around the hospital, and unfortunately into the room of a U.S. Peace Corps, and stole a lot of valuables and were caught also on camera. These are clear indications of people taking advantage of this conflict to loot, to maim, to rape, to dehumanize the people further, and to wreak havoc on a peace-loving population that is asking just for one thing: the right to life, the right to dignity as a human person, and the right to freedom which is recognized even in international instruments. And so, the National Commission on Human Rights and Freedoms is reminding not only Mr. Paul Biya, but also drawing the attention of the world and of all the actors of the international scene to the effect that what is happening in the Southern Cameroons today is not just any kind of, efforts to quell what the government calls some kind of terrorism, but it is a clear-cut action to reduce the people to nothing. We have seen soldiers break into homes, and because they could not carry grains, because they could not carry food reserves that farmers kept for the planting season, they burnt them down. What degree of inhumanity do we require to see again before the world knows that the people of Southern Cameroons were simply and unfortunately unevenly yoked with demons that they mistakenly thought were their brothers? Now, take a look at this. The National Commission on Human Rights and Freedoms, created by the government of La République du Cameroun, and all its members appointed by presidential decree by Mr. Paul Biya himself, and who have generally worked according to their own directives, has reached a level it can't conceal anything anymore. And that is why this commission recalls that they had urged the government of La République du Cameroun to stop the aggression and make recourse to dialogue on several accounts. And they had written to the president of the republic so many times and never received even an acknowledgement that any of those letters were received. It is the same scenario with the Catholic Church. The bishops of the ecclesiastical province of Bamenda report that they have written several times and even requested audience with Mr. Paul Biya to discuss this issue, but all these calls fell on deaf ears. Yet, they easily run to the microphones to address the peace-loving people of the Southern Cameroons as extremists. So before going public with this letter, which is now an open letter from an institution, a Republican institution, operating within La République du Cameroun, created by the same La République du Cameroun, now writing to their president by open letter. And this is the justification that is given. The commission says on the 9th of February 2017, they addressed a correspondence to the president of the republic, Mr. Paul Biya, after they carried out serious investigations into the happenings in what they called here the northwest and southwest, that's the Southern Cameroons, and had serious findings of rights violations. That letter had no response. On the 18th of June 2018, they wrote another letter addressed to the presidency of the republic, in which they made serious recommendations on ways that could be engaged to ensure a peaceful revolution or a peaceful settlement to the ongoing conflict pitting the Southern Cameroons and La République du Cameroun. Again, no response. On the 14th of January 2019, yet another letter was written, this time through the minister delegate at the presidency of the republic in charge of the defense. Again, it was ignored. On the 18th of February 2019, the National Commission on Human Rights and Freedoms wrote another letter to the President of the Republic concerning the deterioration of the socio-political situation and especially concerning the worsening humanitarian situations in the Southern Cameroons, mentioning seriously the rampant killings of civilians unprovoked by the security forces. Again, that letter was ignored. That is why this particular correspondence, dated the 22nd of March 2019 and signed by Dr. Chemuta Divine Banda, is now captioned an open letter. This is to take not only the public, but also to take the international community and other members of the or actors on the international scene to witness to the fact that the government of La République du Cameroun is a rogue apparatus, that La République du Cameroun is a rogue state that is determined to continue wreaking havoc on unarmed civilians, being protected by untrained young boys and girls who only picked up arms because they realized that if they don't fight, they will die. If they fight, they will die. So they decided to die fighting. My dear brothers and sisters of the Southern Cameroons, this is coming at the moment. Some 38 countries in the Western world are forming a coalition and are coming to terms with the reality of the conflict raging on between La République du Cameroun and the people of the Southern Cameroons. This is why it is important for each and every one of us who hasn't registered yet to be part of the all-important All Southern Cameroons People's Conference that is coming up on the 29th and 30th of this month to do so and be present. The world is shaking about our plight. We have to sit down and be able to give our own directives to these actors on the international scene on how we believe that our problem can be addressed. We shall not sit down and allow a tiny minority that is making a loud noise around the world and claiming to be in the majority to decide our fate for us. That is exactly what they are seeking to achieve. If you hear so much noise, if you hear so much recrimination, if you hear a lot of attacks around this conference on social media, it is because of one thing. It is because the authorities of La République du Cameroun, until this minute that I'm talking to you, the 24th day of March, in the year of our Lord 2019, are yet to have any clear information as to who really is organizing this conference, as to who is financing this conference, as to what the outcome of this conference is likely to be. And because La République du Cameroun doesn't have this information, they know they therefore cannot control the outcome of that conference. Reason, they have sent all their agents provocateurs in all our firms to be raising some kind of seemingly pertinent questions here and there, and then be very sure that some of our activists, who may simply be naive, will pick up those questions and make them their town cry, and consequently cast conspiracy theory after conspiracy theory around this conference in an effort to force us to be forthcoming, to force us to put all our dices in the public as in the past, because they have a 24-hour, 7-on-7 unit that works and scrutinizes about all the forums where Southern Cameroonians talk about this conflict. And that is where they generally get every piece of information about every other plan of action we have. But because we have come to that realization and decided to close up, that is why you get the noise. It's even going to be much more deadly in the days leading to the 29th of March. We will not budge because we have 8 million people's lives to protect. We will not budge. Even accusations of sitting with enablers or accusations of sitting with whoever and whatever will not push us to budge. That will not push us to hatch the eggs beforehand. That will not push us to say things that we have determined not to say before that conference unfolds. Let the town crying continue. We will continue to work serenely because the future of 8 million Southern Cameroonians is more important than my personality, than protecting the personality of John Baakuro from all sorts of insults, from all sorts of insinuations, from all forms of attacks, and from all kinds of fabricated lies. I won't defend myself. The most important thing that we have to do is to make sure we register online and be part of this conference and make our voices heard. We will not allow a tiny minority speaking so loudly here and there to go sit down on their own terms, to go sit down under the auspices and watchful eyes and intimidations of La République du Cameroon to decide our future for us. No, we must have to take our own destiny in our own hands. And if you ever thought at any moment that it is important for you to be part of this process, the time for you to arise and be counted and be part of the history-making conference is now. May the Holy Spirit of God continue to guide our actions. God is with us.